Hey guys, it's Trisha with Upcycled Stuff. Today I'm going to show you how to make these really quick, really easy flowers out of a strip of an old t-shirt, whether you buy them at the thrift store or dig it out of the back of your closet. It's a really great way to upcycle some of those old t-shirts. Now I have 3 different flowers here in front of me, and each one of them serves a different purpose, but they're all made pretty much the same way, and in this video I'll show you the simple adjustments you can make to make each one of these. So this one here on my finger is actually one that has just a piece of elastic on the back, and it's made to fit on a dog's collar. So if you have a little girl who you want to snazz up for the Valentine's Day holiday coming up, or any day of the year, the leash or the collar will just slide right through this piece of elastic. So I'll show you how to make this version. And then the same flower, I've just added a little clip to it. See, that opens up, and that will go into a little girl's hair, so you can have a cute little hair bow. Or this one here, this one could be for you to wear on your lapel or on your favorite handbag. I've added a pin to the back of it. So I'm going to show you all 3 ways to make this very simple flower. So here are your supplies. Of course, you'll need to start with a t-shirt. Since Valentine's Day is just a couple days away, I have a stack of red t-shirts, and I'm going to dig into those for this tutorial. You'll need something to sew with. You could do this on your machine, but it's not necessary. A needle and thread will work just fine. You'll need a little piece of fabric. I'm using felt, of course, Eco-Fi, the kind that's made from recycled plastic bottles, but you could use another piece of t-shirt or a piece of denim. I like the heavier weight just because it helps to smooth everything out on the bottom, but it's essentially just, it's got to be big enough to cover the bottom of your flower. You'll need a pair of scissors and a hot glue gun. And then depending on what you want to make, if you want to make one of these flowers here for the dog collar or the cat collar, you'll need a piece of elastic. Typically I do anywhere from about 2.5 inches to 4 inches to get started. So something like this flower would be like a 4-inch piece, and something like this little one would be about a 2-inch piece. And finally, if you want to do some kind of a flower that you can pin on, or if you want to do a hair piece, you'll need some kind of a finding for that. So I just have a regular pin here. And then these are just 2 cute little findings that you can attach. So let's get started with this really easy project. So the first thing we want to do is cut a piece of our t-shirt. Now I have 2 red t-shirts here that, look pretty much the same, except this red one has a side seam. And it's okay to use, you can use it, but you will see these seams in your finished flower, at least the tops of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this t-shirt, which doesn't have a side seam. This is really easy, guys, I promise. Take your scissors, and we're just gonna cut off this bottom hem. I'm just gonna make a small one. I am only gonna use half of my t-shirt. So I'm going to open up my band, and I'm going to cut the ends here, just so I end up with a half a strip. And that's all I need for this tutorial. So once you have your needle threaded, it's just a regular double thread with a simple little knot at the end. You can use a coordinating thread. It doesn't really matter. It's going to be hidden, but I wanted you to be able to see what I was doing. So you're going to take your thread and run it through the center until your knot hits. All right, and then you're just going to do a running stitch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you feel more comfortable having some kind of a guide to get you down the center of the t-shirt, which again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can either take a piece of chalk and a straight edge to make a straight line down the center, or you can fold it in half and iron it, and then you'll have a little crease down the center. But again, it's really not necessary. I think it makes for a prettier flower if it's a little bit more organic. Okay, and you don't want to keep it like that. Just go ahead and open it up. Okay, so that's what you're gonna do all the way down to the end. So then just pull that through. didn't quite have enough, thread, but that's okay because the next step is to gather your t-shirt along the length of the thread. So you can gather it up pretty tight if you want to, but I recommend a loose gather just because it gets a little hard to work with and you won't get a very big flower out of your piece of fabric. So you can gather it up tight in one place and then spread it out a little. Okay. So for me, I think that's more than enough for me. Go ahead and cut it off of your needle and then just tie a knot once you have it gathered to the place that you want it. Go ahead and tie a knot right down to your t-shirt so that everything stays in place. You won't lose your gathered bits, okay? So now you have a nice little knot. All right, let me snip off that excess thread. Okay, now all we have to do is we're gonna fold our t-shirt in half along this thread line and we're gonna roll it up. That's it, that's all we have to do. And I'm gonna add some hot glue along the way, both on the inside, but not along the whole way, because I like to have a little bit more loose of a petal, and if you have too much glue in there, it's just gonna squish everything up. So I'm going to add just a couple dabs at the beginning to get things started. And the center doesn't really matter if it's squished up tight, because that's kind of how a real flower is anyway, squished up tight in the center. Okay, so then just keep folding the rest of it. And then every so often, just add a dab of glue. Just so it's easier to handle when you're rolling it. You don't have to do this part, but for me, it just feels easier to keep things moving along. All right, so I'm gonna come back to the beginning of the t-shirt that I want on the inside, and I'm gonna put just a little bit of glue just in the center, just to keep everything together. So I'm just gonna start rolling, and I'll add a little more, again, just because it's in the center and it'll keep everything together. Okay, so see how that's rolling up? You don't wanna make it too tight. Well, again, it depends on how you like your flowers. If you wanna roll them tight, you can. But the looser you keep it, the more lifelike it's gonna look. It'll look more like, I kinda think it's more like a carnation than a rose. But you get this really pretty effect. When you get to the end, you just kind of want to place everything where you want it. You might have to work with it so that it rolls open nicely. Okay, and then just glue that down. And then a little bit down there in the center. And if you have pieces like this that are sticking up way too high, you can go back in there and snip them down if they're kind of covering up other parts of the rose and sort of detracting from the beauty of it. You can just snip them down a little bit. I like to anyway. So there's our flower. Now what we need to do is take our glue gun out of the way for a minute. So now we just need to add an attachment to the back. You need a piece of felt or some other fabric that will just cover the bottom of the flower. You don't want it to be protruding on the edges, but you really want it to cover up everything on the bottom. It'll make it look nicer, and it'll also help keep everything together. So the first thing we need to do is add our attachment. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to make the band to put on your dog's collar. So this is what it looks like in the end. And then I'll just show you really quickly how to use the findings. So you're gonna take just another piece of thread, and if you want it to blend in, you'll want it to be the color of your elastic. You won't see any of it on the felt or on the flower. So again, depending on the size of the dog's collar that you want to put this on, you're gonna take your elastic and just fold it over to make a loop and have enough room to be able to sew it together. So you could, if you wanted to, do all this together and sew it onto here at the same time, but I like to do a couple of stitches on my elastic first. So you want to pull it up through the center of your loop so that your knot is hidden underneath once you put the felt on, okay? So your knot should be on the outside. So just do a couple of stitches just to keep things together. You're going to take your felt and you're going to center this. You want the sewn part to be on the bottom like this and centered on the piece of felt. Okay, so make sure your felt's the right size before you sew this on. And then just take and sew through both pieces of elastic and through the felt now. This is the part that's going to be glued onto your flower, so nobody's going to see this. So I'm just slipping my thread through one of my stitches. And then I'm going to run it back through the same stitch. But don't finish. Don't pull it all the way through. You're going to stick it through the loop and pull it down. Okay, and then I'm going to do that one more time just to be sure. Again, there's going to be all kinds of glue on top of this, so I wouldn't really worry too much about it. Okay, so there's my little double knot. I can snip away this excess thread now. And now the final step is to take your flower, line this up, make sure you're still lined up right. Okay, and you can do this one of two ways. You can add glue to here and just stick it on there, or you can add it right to the flower. I like adding it to the flower because then I can make sure that I get it in all the crevices. So I'm just gonna add some glue down in here. Yep, not afraid to add a little hot glue. And then make sure it lines up well. I don't know what happened here. I have all these little pieces of thread that look like they broke. I'll have to go back and snip those off. But squish it all down. So I'm gonna set this aside to dry. I do wanna show you how to add a pin and a hair clip. Okay, so I'm gonna do the little hair clip first because it's probably the easiest one. I have a piece of felt that fits nicely over that flower. I'm gonna take this little piece and I'm going to clamp it right up to the edge, okay? Now this side here is the one that has the teeth, and I want that one to be the one that clips into the hair. So this piece here, I'm gonna put between the felt and the flower. Okay, so it looks like this. So all that I'm gonna do now is take some glue and spread it all over the back of this and make sure that there's plenty here to keep the barrette attached to the felt when it opens. And it's the same process that I'll do that and then I'll glue that down. So plenty of glue. You want to make sure you don't get glue in any kind of the working mechanisms of the finding that you're using. So you want to make sure you stay away from this hinge here. All right, and then just press that down so that you'll still be able to see the little lever, but I think if you try to hide that anymore, it's going to be really hard to operate. So just glue that down into place. Okay, and then once it's dry, you have this little barrette. Can you see that? So it'll open up nicely. You can just slide that into a little girl's hair and you have this cute little flower. Okay? All right, now the last one that I want to show you is using the pin back, and it's pretty much the same. So I'm going to use this pretty little blue and purple flower. This was a tie-dye shirt. It's kind of cute. Anyway, I keep finding glue strings. Anyway, I have another piece of felt and I have my pin back. Now, the only thing I'm going to do different is I want my the silver bar. I want this silver bar right here to be hidden underneath the felt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my circle in half of felt, and I'm going to place my pin centered right on the fold. Now if this gets too bumbly, you can just mark in the center where your little mechanisms are, the little spring at one end and then the latch pin at the other end. But I'm just going to snip right on the fold where those pieces are. Those should be big enough. So let's open up our pin here. And then you're going to take the pin and stick it through one of those holes that you had just made, if I can find it. There it is. And you want to bring that little spring up through it as well. Okay, so that's what it looks like on the back, and that's, now it's coming up through the top. And now with the other hole, you're going to stick this piece through. So this is what you have on top. Okay, go ahead and close up your pin so you don't lose it through the holes. Now this one you have to be super careful about glue, because if you get glue in any of those pieces, and it's going to move around while you're working with it, it's not going to work. So just flip it over, add some glue all over. You can add it, you know, right across the top of here, but try to stay away from where the openings are. That way there you don't have glue gushing out of the openings, and you also aren't going to risk getting glue all in the mechanisms that will make this pin stick to your favorite handbag or t-shirt or whatever. And then just flop it over, line it up, and squish it down. All very technical terms. Oops. Did I tell you I really dislike hot glue? For so many reasons. So there it is. Now you have a pin that you can stick anywhere that you like. So there it is, the same flower 3 ways, one for your pet, one for your baby's hair, and one for you to wear on your lapel.